that we might be in this disease for a long time if we don't have a vaccine. So we have to learn to live with it. But at the same time, there are promising vaccine research going on. So, and yet they are not here. So for the next 18 months or 12 months, we have to do all the efforts so that cases don't overwhelm the system. If you take, for example, the approach of Sweden, when they wanted to see herd immunity, what we are seeing is even at that level of health system, they are getting 3 times, 4 times more cases than their neighbors. And they are asking, why are we doing this? But maybe Sweden can afford because their health system can support the population and they have tremendous capacity. But for us, I think easing the lockdown has to be a gradual looking into how much risk we can take and how much our system can cope with it. And the efforts like the masks and other gradual release of the lockdown would enable the system to be able to cope with it. And I commend the research, the innovation, the capacities we have seen in Uganda, and I think there is a lot which other countries could learn from Uganda, and we are very grateful to collaborate.
Uganda has done very well and does not need a coronavirus center. If the need arises, I am sure that the scientists, our own scientists in Uganda, will advise us accordingly. The law enforcement officer in Hoima is being well taken care of and is doing very well. So I want to request you to disregard the rumors of poor treatment. All our patients, as I mentioned earlier, have been treated with dignity and very professionally. That is why all of them have recovered. Our scientists are very flexible in their treatment of patients, taking care of their needs and also attending to other comorbidities. However, we shall consult Hoima to understand what the complaints of the law enforcement officer is. Lastly, is on the Ebola alert and the secret of interest in statistics for COVID-19. As I mentioned before, we have a threat of Ebola from the DRC. We have not received any cases. One reason is that the borders are closed. Each of the countries have closed their borders, so we have not received cases, but we are aware that our borders are porous, and we continue to monitor. What we monitor from Ebola is very clear. If we get anybody that needs to be tested, we shall test them and inform the country accordingly. Regarding the interest in the statistics for COVID-19, I want to say it is healthy that everybody keeps updated because this is a pandemic affecting the whole world. And it is only wise that we should be concerned about the pandemic and its progression. Whichever direction it is taking us, we need to be concerned. It is only when you're concerned and you know your surrounding that you will know how to respond better. The concern of the Ugandans has made them very vigilant and alert, and they keep us informed on a daily basis. They identify foreigners in their communities and report. Their concern has enabled them to give a lot of advice on what should be done to handle the truck drivers. And so I want to applaud everyone for being very concerned and active in knowing what is going on regarding COVID-19. Lastly, allow me once again to appreciate you, the population of Uganda, for your vigilance, for your selfless sacrifice to ensure that we keep safe, for your alertness regarding COVID-19, and for implementing the presidential directives. As I have always said, it is the population that will determine the direction in which this pandemic moves in Uganda. You can choose to keep all of us healthy, or you can choose that the pandemic blows out of proportion and we begin to see deaths. My appeal to you is that we choose to keep alive. So remain vigilant and implement the directives. Lastly, allow me to appreciate the selfless health workers who have put their lives on the front line to ensure that those who test positive are treated and they remain alive and healthy, but also to protect us, the rest of the community members. There is nothing that can compare to life, and there is only one life. You lose it today, you can't get it tomorrow. And all that the president is doing is in an attempt to ensure that we keep alive. And that is why he said, health first, wealth can wait. Professor Rod has explained a lot about the phased lifting of the lockdown. But I want Ugandans to understand that if we lifted the lockdown abruptly and you got infected, you will lose your life. And then all that you have sacrificed over these nearly 6 weeks of lockdown will go down the drain. And it will be very painful. So let us suffer now, stay alive, and work to build our economy after we are much surer that we can handle COVID-19. You heard from the WR how the cases are increasing, including in Africa. You have heard from various people the challenges of this coronavirus or SARS-CoV-2. We don't want any Ugandan to die from COVID-19. So far, working together, we have ensured that we have remained alive. It is important that we remain alive to build our economy. And so in this respect, again, I want to appreciate His Excellency the President for providing the guidelines and for reminding us that no Ugandan should die due to COVID-19 because it is preventable. Again, I want to appreciate the patience of the Ugandan community regarding truck drivers. It is true that after scanning through the communities, our potential areas of infection lies at the border points and also with the truck drivers. And as I mentioned earlier, the Ministry of Health, with partners, together with the truck owners, are considering many options regarding the truck drivers. But also, as I mentioned before, the final options will be determined by their excellencies, the presidents of the East African region. You will recall that His Excellency the President, in his address, said we need cargo to travel because this cargo is carrying what we need for our day-to-day survival. You cut out cargo, many things will go amiss. and that will increase our suffering. But there are innovative ways of handling this cargo and ensuring that they don't cause infection. But the innovative ways do not negate the fact that we need to test them and know who is positive. So what I talked about earlier is what was proposed by their excellencies for us to look through, see the feasibility, and inform them accordingly. And one of the areas is to ensure that we build an army of negative drivers who are tested from origin, remain quarantined within the system, and continue to transport cargo. It is possible. We are exploring ways with our neighboring countries. As soon as they accept and come on board, we will do that. They also directed that we consider testing 24 hours before departure. That will require that the testing areas are nearer to the border points of crossing, because if they are further away and the drivers are not in the quarantine system, they can still get exposed and acquire infection. So we are also looking at the options around that. They also directed that we consider testing these drivers every 2 weeks, which is possible as soon as they have entered into the system. We shall continue to identify well-designated places. Uganda has already done that, where they can stop, rest, and also get food without necessarily stopping along the way, because that is where the danger arises. The other proposal is to limit to 2 drivers per truck. So working with the truck owners, they have developed an application that will enable us to track the drivers and also have their records entered digitally. So we'll not need the pass. We'll need a card with a barcode where they can scan and their results come out. And then they're allowed to cross through without having a congestion at the border point of entry, but also monitoring them. So there are 3 steps that are still left. One of the steps is to ensure that our East African neighbors are in agreement. 2 is that all our neighbors accept testing at origin, so that Uganda tests all her truck drivers and they enter into the system and sign that we shall accept to be quarantined in the system. Similarly, it will require drivers from our neighbors also to get tested by them. They enter into the system and sign an agreement that they accept to be quarantined in the system. Of course, quarantining them in the system is not permanent. There are provisions for dropping out of the system and having a replacement, so that you can get to see your loved ones, your wife and your family. And then if you have to get back into the system, you're tested again and you accept to be quarantined. So this system has already been developed. And as I said, the 3 things left are agreement with the East African neighbors,